So tell me if this has happened to you. You study for a test, and as you go through the material, you're recognizing the words and the concepts, so you're feeling pretty good about it. All is good. But then when you sit down to the actual test, it seems like you didn't even study at all. Either the questions seem hard, the questions don't make sense, everything feels like it's on the tip of your tongue, and you are left wondering, what the heck happened? I'll tell you what happened. You didn't actually understand what you were studying. You thought you did. You genuinely thought you did, but you fooled yourself into thinking you did, but you really didn't. Hi, I'm Katie Azevedo. I'm a private executive function coach who teaches students and professionals strategies to learn and work better. You can find me here, here, and if you like this video, find it at all helpful, please give it a like, make sure you subscribe, and if you have any questions at all, leave them in the comments. So, as annoying as this situation is, it's not uncommon. It is not a you thing. Our brains are wired to avoid pain. And I guess that's really good for our survival over time. Like, don't touch the fire, don't eat the poison berry. But that instinct can also make us think that we know things that we don't, simply to avoid the pain of admitting that we don't know something. So, what is the solution? The solution starts with recognizing that this is happening. So that's why in this video, I'm going to reveal 3 signs that you're studying wrong. 3 signs that you don't understand what you're studying as much as you think you do. Now, one final thing before I start with strategy number 1, I have a video called Why You're Bad at Taking Tests. I will link that below. It is 1000% related to what we're talking about today. And it is full of more strategies that you can use to get yourself out of this situation. So when you're done here, head there. Okay, sign number 1 that you don't understand what you're studying, so it's a study mistake, is that you cannot explain the material clearly to somebody else. The ultimate test of whether or not we really truly understand something is if we can explain something to someone else in a way that they understand it. If we can't summarize and simplify and explain a concept to somebody else, then it means that we're just not there yet. So listen, there is a huge difference between being able to recognize information and being able to retrieve information like out of thin air. When we're reviewing our notes and our textbooks, the information is right in front of us. So when we look at things and this is why I'm always saying, like, rereading your notes is not studying, because you're looking at the information and you're recognizing it. And our brains are doing this brilliant job of saying, oh, well, you recognize the material, it's familiar, which means you must understand it. But that's the breakdown, that's the mistake. Because like I said, recognition is not the same as full understanding. Recognition is not the same as recall. And a good test to see whether we can recall something and not just whether we can recognize it when it's already in front of us is to see if we can explain it to somebody else. And of course, doing this with no notes in front of us. So if we have someone else, some unsuspecting subject that you found in your household or in your dorm or a friend or whatever, and you're trying to explain it, and you find yourself saying things like, oh, well, it's really hard to explain, but I know what it is. No, you don't. Or if you find yourself, sorry, it's harsh, but like, or if you find yourself saying like, oh, it's on the tip of my tongue, like I know it. It's just like, trust me, I know it. But I just can't say it right now. Again, that means that you don't actually know it. And that's fine. You'd rather figure that out now, right, than in the middle of a test. But like I said, our brains work really hard to convince us that we know things, right? Because it's somewhat painful to be like, oh, well, we don't know that. That means we have to go put in more work into knowing that, and that's under the category of pain for many of us. So our brains are like, nope, we're good, nothing to see here, folks, right? But the ultimate test of whether we really know it is to try to explain this to someone else. So go find someone else and try to explain what it is that you're learning. All right, sign number 2, that you don't understand what you're studying, so it's another study mistake, is that you can't answer questions on the material without looking at your notes. Now this may seem really obvious, but if we can't answer questions without looking at our notes before a test, we will be unable to answer questions without looking at our notes during the test. Now I know that that sounds like mind-blowingly simple, but so many people just don't accept that. So listen to this again. If you can't answer questions before the test, no way in heck are we gonna be able to answer questions during the test. So the strategy is, wait for it, test yourself on the material before the test. I know, mind blowing. Okay, so how do we do this? Make your own quizzes. You can find quizzes online. Honestly, just Google quiz about Revolutionary War. And like a whole bunch of materials will come up, especially if you add PDF after that. You can make flashcards. You can use old quizzes and just blocking out the answers, or make new quizzes from your old tests and quizzes and worksheets. You can answer the chapter review questions in your textbook. Yeah, even if they weren't assigned, right? They're there. And if you can't answer them, like in the low-key environment of studying, how are you going to be able to answer them on the test, right? So make some kind of quiz for yourself. And if you find that you're unable to answer those questions without peeking at your nose, without Googling, without peeking over the flashcard, then you don't know the material well enough. And that's fine. That's just feedback. That's a data point that you just have to go back and study that material a little bit more. Taking practice tests before the actual test is actually a brilliant study strategy. I didn't invent it, so I'm not calling myself brilliant, but it works because it's active recall. Okay, and other study strategies that involve active recall, like the blurting method, the Feynman technique, even just simple flashcards, all of those work because they all put you in a situation of trying to recall and retrieve information that you're learning without any notes in front of you. Right? It's separating that familiarity with the material, the recognition of the material, from actually being able to retrieve it from your brain with no cues. Okay, so by the way, a link to my how to use the Feynman technique video and the blurting method video, as well as mind mapping. That's a great study strategy as well that uses active recall. Everything that I mentioned will be in the description box, but you know that by now. All right, sign number 3 that you don't fully understand what you're studying yet is that you have memorized the information word for word. A huge mistake that I see people make is thinking that memorizing something is the same as learning it. Memorizing something is not at all a sign that you know it. And it's definitely not a sign that you'll be able to apply that information to a question on a test. So when teachers and professors design assessments, they're designing questions that ask you to apply information, not just regurgitate it, like word for word. You have to know something well enough to be able to apply it to a question in a variety of contexts. Does that make sense? So for example, if you are studying that the word deleterious means pernicious, so you have on a flashcard, I'm just picking vocab because vocab's always simple for examples. You have deleterious on one side of a flashcard and pernicious on the other, and you've just memorized that those two words are synonyms. But you actually don't know what pernicious means. Well, that means that you don't know what deleterious means. So when you have to use that word in a sentence on a test, that's the applying what you know, right? You can't, right? Because memorizing is not knowing. Now, another example would be, let's say that you memorize the definition of myelin sheath, okay, for your biology test. And the definition that you memorized is that it's a protective plasma membrane wrapped around a nerve axon. Like you have memorized that word for word. Now that's neat that you can memorize, that's really great. But if you don't know what plasma membrane is, if you don't know what the nerve axon is, then you do not know what the myelin sheath is. And if you come across a question on your test that's asking you to explain what would happen if the myelin sheath were damaged, for example, you wouldn't know because truly you don't know what the myelin sheath is. I'm gonna repeat this. Memorizing something does not mean you know it. Huge study mistake. Now there's definitely a time and a place for memorization. Like if you need to memorize, let's say all 50 US states with their capitals, okay? Like basic things like that. But if you are in high school or college or graduate school, we have to move beyond memorization. You are so much better learning something than memorizing it, because then it doesn't matter what questions they ask you on a test. If you know something, you'll be able to apply what you know to any type of question you're asked. And if you think that, the entire point of school is just to get the check mark and get the grade, and you can do that by memorizing, then truthfully, you're missing the entire point. I have a video called How Smart Students Think, and I talk about the top 3 mindsets of top performing, non-stressed out students. And one of the strategies or one of the mindsets of top performing students who are not stressed out is that they understand the value of learning something versus trying to memorize it, or learning something versus just trying to get the check mark or the grade. Like learning the thing is the shortcut. And with learning, shortcuts don't exist. Like the learning process takes the time it takes, whether we like it or not. It's kind of like digestion. It just sort of takes an amount of time that it takes, and we can't shortcut it. We can't hack it. Using passive study techniques and, trying to memorize things makes things so much harder than they need to be. Learn what you need to learn for real, and the rest will take care of itself. Okay, this was a quick video. If you found it helpful, please give it a like. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't done so already. And if you have any questions at all, leave them in the comments. And as always, thank you so much for watching.